on your computer, on your smartphone, on your Wi-Fi radio. We're localwebradio.fm.
Are you dealing with a health issue you would love to resolve? Would you like to restore yourself to be healthier and more invigorated? There is help. Welcome to the Natural Therapy Show with Dr. Tim Brown, architect and creator of Ocean Park Natural Therapies. Now, here's your host.
Eva Marienchild here, and yes, I am your host. I am here with Dr. Tim Brown, DC, ND, owner of Ocean Park Natural Therapies and creator of Solving Your Health Puzzle with Integrated Medicine. Today we're going to be discussing how we utilize oxygen, how oxygen affects our cells, our health, and some practical things people can do to improve their oxygen utilization. Now, before Dr. Brown joins us, just a reminder, folks, that if you have questions or if you require assistance, you can certainly reach Dr. Brown's office at 604-538-3017, or you can visit him or his staff online at www.oceanparkhealth.com. Dr. Brown, welcome to the call. Nice to have you here again.
Well, good day.
Good day. Okay, let's jump right into this. This is a fabulous topic. What do you mean by energy is all about oxygen utilization?
Well, if we look at how we study how human beings derive energy, it's really all about how we utilize oxygen. Because without oxygen for a very short period of time, our cells, especially our brain and nerve cells, die and the tissues deteriorate rapidly. This happens as in things like a stroke or a heart attack. It can happen with head trauma or poisoning, especially things like acute mercury poisoning or this type of thing. But when we're more slowly starved of oxygen, or when we're slowly unable to utilize oxygen, we deteriorate, but in a predictable and much slower rate of decline, and one which directly correlates with aging of our brain and our body functions. And so there's a term called biological aging, which is different than your chronological age. And oxygen utilization is a direct reflection of aging and also mitochondrial function.
Thank you. Thanks very much. For the folks in the audience, would you just break down briefly what mitochondrial function is?
Yes. The mitochondria are the little cellular energy machines that are in your body tissues, and they sit in areas of the body that are more susceptible to damage from the environment, from lack of nutrients, radiation, viruses and infections, chemical poisonings, drugs. And many things can shut down their functioning, and we have lots of these mitochondria throughout the body, but if you get a disease such as viral infections, and you can end up with chronic fatigue syndromes, and mononucleosis can cause these things. The loss or damage to this mitochondria leads to what's called early onset mitochondrial dysfunction, which is a premature onset of aging. That's something that we want to avoid. My interest is in optimal function for the human being, and instead of anti-aging and looking at that, I focus on something I would call optimal aging.
That's wonderful. The most important thing is to keep folks from hospital beds, keep them happy and healthy.
Well, again, a healthy back, a body, and a brain all working together. So Dr. Frank Schallenberger wrote an article that was very interesting when I came across it. It's called Early Onset Mitochondrial Dysfunction. And in that article, he showed that using physiological testing of oxygen utilization, There's a direct correlation with mitochondrial dysfunction, and when compared to aging populations, because we know that oxygen utilization declines each decade as we age and get older. From about 40 years of age onwards, there's a steady decline. But we found that people in their 30s or their 40s may have functioning that correlates with a person that's 10 or 15 years older. Or vice versa, we can have somebody who's 60 years old and their physiological testing shows that they're really at a 50-year-old capacity. This is what we term biological age. The age that your tissues are at would be then correlated with the normals for certain age groups. And we can then tell how your cells are functioning, and we know you're only as strong as the weakest part of your functioning.
Yeah, thank you for that. The decline can be reversed. That's the important thing. Now, what's the correlation to diet, Dr. Brown?
Well, we found a huge correlation to diet, to stress, and to some other things. So these are some things that people can actually make a change in. And one of the correlations that's obvious is as you get older, into your 30s, 40s, you have to lower carbohydrate intake. And carbohydrates act kind of like a kindling for a fire. And we need a certain amount in our system of glucose, which is what the brain runs on. But if we have too much in our system, initially we can get what's called hypoglycemia, which is an overreaction to the sugars and things in the diet, and too much insulin, and then the blood sugar will also drop. If you get an underreaction of insulin, not enough, then what happens is you end up becoming diabetic. So after 35, we have to change our diet to lower carbs because we can't handle them like we did when we were earlier. And symptoms of too much carb in the system can also be things like bloating and gas and irritable bowel reactions.
May I interrupt? You're speaking of complex carbs as well as standard carbs?
Yeah, that gets us into another discussion about all the nutrients, their different levels. For instance, with carbohydrates, if you took something like potato as a carbohydrate, well, potato has a relatively high glycemic index, but there's a difference between whether you had potato as a deep-fried or French-fried potato. If you have it as a quick mashed potato thing that you just add some water in and it's instant, and or whether you had a baked potato. And the difference is, as you're pointing out, between complexities. On the one hand, if you have a deep-fried, you're getting oils that are already cooked, and you're getting a combination of an oil and a carbohydrate that's already cooked, and that's very hard on your system. On the other hand, if you have the mashed potatoes that are quick cooked, you're going to get an instant hit of those carbohydrates. So yes, you do want them complex so that they're burning longer and slower. That's one of the principles. But then there's also, when we talked about fats, there's the right and the wrong fats. And we can't utilize what I call plasticized or oxidized fats because they plug up our system. They're like eating plastic and or used oil and putting it back in your car. What we need are fats that help our cell membranes, our nerve insulation sheaths, and energy production in the mitochondria. We can't burn fats that are very large and complex. They're like big logs, and we need them chopped into the right size pieces so we can burn them. Like if you were burning wood in your fireplace, it needs to be the right size. And the size we need are called medium chain triglycerides or medium chain fatty acids.
So you covered carbs, fats, what else?
Well, you have to have enough protein. And protein are building blocks for repair and maintenance of our structures when they get worn out. So you have to have enough protein so that you can make good repair. Without good protein, your wear and tear on your body is not going to be corrected. So regarding carbohydrates, fats, and protein, I tell people it's like the story of the three little pigs. And the first little pig built the house out of straw, and straw is carbohydrates. They burn quickly, but they don't offer you an awful lot of protection from the big bad wolf, which is stress. The second little pig built his house out of sticks, and the sticks and things are more like fats. They still burn, and but they burn longer, and we're going to use those for long-term energy and endurance. And the third little pig built a house out of protein, which were bricks. Now, the bricks offered great structural stability and resistance to the big bad wolf, but if you built your house just everything in your place out of bricks, it wouldn't be very comfortable. So you need the right amount of things made of materials, kind of straw-like, and then some things made of fat, so they're a little softer and cushier, and you also need protein for the rigid and the strength of the structures.
And you need more stuff, too. You need now the things that make it all come together, because carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are relatively static unless you break them down and remodel them and utilize them. So for that, we need another group of three, which are enzymes, vitamins, and minerals. The good guys.
Yeah, the good guys. Well, they're actually the things that do the work. So the enzymes break things apart into the correct sizes and small pieces, so they make the modules that we can utilize. And that's kind of like when you purchase furniture from the store. It usually comes in boxes that you have to put together, take apart and put together when you get them through the doorway. Enzymes are very important in that they do the work. But the speed at which enzymes can function are related to vitamins and minerals. And vitamins are called coenzymes because they work with the enzymes to upregulate or downregulate the production pathways. And then minerals are called cofactors because they work with enzymes and vitamins in order to regulate these pathways. So the way I explain it to patients is I say, now you have to bring the bride, the groom, and the preacher together in order to have the relationship created that needs to happen here to have a proper marriage between the food groups and your body.
Going back to your three little piggies analogy, I think these are the windows and the doors to let the sun in. Enzymes, vitamins, and minerals.
Yes. These are the things that create the proper fire or combustion in the house to keep it warm. And to get rid of the unwanted things, you have to have a garbage disposal system, but you have to have a food intake system. So in the body, we look at the energy production, which creates heat. And so being properly heated and warm is important for everything to function. And then you need kitchen for this to go on, which is your digestive tract. And then you need a bathroom area where things are being released, the waste products and things. So there's a whole kind of a system that we can easily understand by relating to things in our own life.
Where does fiber fit in? This goes back to the carbs, the complex carbs.
Well, the fiber is important because it's part of the cleaning process.
Right, and, you just triggered that thought with the garbage disposal.
Yeah, garbage disposal, cleaning, and holding on to, it's important that we trap some of the things and put them into the right kinds of containers to get them released and out of the system. Otherwise, if, for instance, the chimney's plugged up and the doors and windows are all shut tightly to the outside as a kind of protection, then the problem is that you get what's called auto-intoxication. The waste products from the inside are going to build up and actually create an environment that is detrimental to those three little piggies.
And that's why detox sometimes is detrimental, because it's too harsh without fiber.
Yes, it's even more than just fiber, because when we get into detoxification and talk about things like heavy metals, you must have proper chelators that grab onto them.
Chelators, right,
and remove them, and fiber is one of those. But you also have to have solvents and solutions that bring these things out of the cells from like in the carpets and the different parts of the house. There's different types of cleansers that you need. And